Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Chris Spangle Show. Thanks so much for joining me. We've got a great conversation today about the 14th Amendment. How often do you get to say that, right? I know you're looking forward to this conversation on the Constitution. But Trump on his first day did an executive order ending birthright citizenship. And I'm sure you've heard about it, but maybe you don't know exactly what that is. So we are going to give you an explanation and talk a little bit more about it with Agustina Vergara Cid. She is a Young Voices contributor focusing on immigration policy. Her commentary has appeared in the Orange County Register, Newsweek, and The Hill. I loved this conversation. Normally, these are going to be about 15 minutes, but we talked for 30 minutes, and I really liked her perspective on this and tried to stick to birthright citizenship. You know, with immigration, what's interesting about immigration is, and I didn't get a chance to ask her about this just because of time constraints, but Trump is deporting people right now at less than Obama-era levels and about the same as Joe Biden. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of difference in terms of the rubber on the road, with the exception of things like this executive order. But the rhetoric is obviously different, for sure. And I think Trump articulates where the U.S. government thinks about immigration. And we're going to talk to Agustina, who is an immigrant herself. So she talks a little bit about that. And she explains what birthright citizenship is, where Trump's head is on an executive order that tries to ban something that's in the Constitution. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. So stay tuned for my conversation with Agustina right after this. Agustina, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Yeah, so let's get started with birthright citizenship. What exactly does that mean?
So birthright citizenship is the policy that's enshrined in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that every person born on U.S. soil is an American, is an American citizen, except for instance, the children of diplomats. So that means that if you are born on American soil, no matter where your parents are from, whether they're Americans or they are here on a visitor visa, on an H-1B visa, or they're permanent residents but not citizens, it doesn't matter. The fact that you were born on American soil means that you are legally an American citizen.
Now, as I understand it, this goes back hundreds of years in English law, too, and that's how we inherited this. I know that's not the case everywhere, but this is a part of the Constitution, correct?
Yes, that is correct. The 14th Amendment enshrines this principle, and there is a lot of controversy around, does it actually apply to the children of people that are present in the United States illegally, and maybe people that are not permanent residents? And there's like this whole back and forth between scholars about, what the Constitution actually means in the 14th Amendment. I am of the belief that if you really read and look at the history of the 14th Amendment, really, the 14th Amendment means anyone except, again, for diplomats and people that are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States because they're diplomats. Everyone born here is an American citizen. And in 1898, the Supreme Court in Wong Kim Ark established that U.S.-born children of immigrants were and remained citizens, even if there were even changes in the law that would prevent them from being citizens from then on. It was essentially the case of a person of Chinese parents. His parents were in the United States, and he traveled to China in his early 20s. And then he tried to come back, and they told him, no, you're not a citizen because we have this law called the Chinese Exclusion Act that was passed in 1892, which said that, Chinese people were not, it essentially really restricted the immigration of Chinese nationals to the United States. But the court held look, no, you were born on American soil, even if your parents were not American citizens, that means that you are an American citizen. So, and then there's more controversy around, well, is this actually what the court meant and all that? But to me, at least at this time, it seems pretty clear to me that that's what the 14th
my
Amendment.
pastor has this saying, the plain thing is the main thing. Don't get confused with all the details and all the sometimes just the obvious is the obvious. Like, historical precedent is that if you're born in America, you are an American citizen. So, which leads us to Trump's day one executive order. What did Trump write in an executive order on his first day of office?
Yeah, so this executive order, which again, it's relevant that it was issued in the literally the first day, which is we can talk about why that might have been. But essentially, the order states that the children of illegal immigrants and the children of most visa holders short of a green card, um, so people, even the children of people who are here legally, won't be American citizens once this executive order goes through, unless one of their parents is an American citizen or a green card holder.
Mm.
So essentially, for any for any person whose parents has anything short of a green card, which is, by the way, extremely hard to get, that person will no longer be an American. And, you are born essentially being, quote, an illegal immigrant, if that makes sense, which to me it doesn't really. But that's essentially the gist of what President Trump is trying to do.
Yeah, it seems in the totality of his executive orders, they did some homework the last 4 years, and they really tried to work within the framework of a lot of the Constitution and other ways just to kind of target things. And, this only applies to federal workers and these cases, blah, 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 blah. But this is the one that I don't really understand at all because it's so constitutionally clear. Yeah, there's some muddy arguments like you mentioned, but why do you think they issued this on day one, and what was the goal of issuing something that is a direct constitutional challenge?
Well, I think so. So birthright citizenship, it's really not a problem. Like, our immigration system has so many problems, and we can talk a lot about all the problems with the immigration system. I'm an immigrant myself. I came here legally, and I'll tell you, the what I had to go through to come here legally, it was nothing short of dystopian, even, like, Kafkaesque, I guess is the word,
It,
really.
it takes years and thousands of dollars, correct?
It does. And there's also the way that it's set up, it's really, I call it, instead of an immigration system, is an anti-immigration system, because it really wants to keep as many people out versus, try to get more people in that are peaceful and want to come here to work.
Right.
But in any case, of all the many, many
Look,
issues.
I'm going to have you back to rant about that because the smile on your face says you've got a lot that you want to unload on this, and I want to
Yeah.
hear it for sure. But I mean, so day one, I mean, what's the point of this shot across the bow?
Yeah, so, like, really, like I said, like, birthright citizenship is really not, in my opinion, is not a problem, right? It's not something that it's really making things worse in terms of immigration in America. So part of the reason that a lot of people want to restrict it is because they say, well, it's a magnet for illegal immigration, because you come here and then you have a baby, and it's, quote, an anchor baby. It's a very derogative term, but it means, oh, the parents are gonna now get citizenship because they have a child as an American. And that's a myth, because if you're here illegally, it's really hard to become legal, let alone become a citizen. And also, if you were to try to do that, you would have to wait until your child is 21 years old. So you would live over 20 years of your life here illegally, with everything that means, for the possibility that maybe your child could sponsor you to become a permanent resident at some point 20 years down the line.
Yeah, I guess
But yeah.
I've heard this term so often, but I didn't realize that was the theory that. So the theory is that if I listen to talk radio, that my parents somehow get across the border, they get here into America, they get here in time to have it. My mom's 6 months pregnant. They cross the border, have me in a hospital in San Antonio, and then they wait 21 years for the child to then sponsor that. So is that the theory? And, like, what is the likelihood of that actually timing out and working that way?
Well, it's not likely to work. I mean, it probably has happened, but I don't and keep in mind, if you have been 20 years in the United States illegally, you have had to work. You probably haven't committed crimes, because if you commit a crime and you're here illegally, and you get and you get caught, then you're out for the most part. Like, or you are, your chances of remaining in the United States are very low. So
And
it's,
would the child have to go? So let's say I get arrested and my child's 6. Do they go back with me? Do they, or does, because my child's an American citizen, they don't go back to wherever the country of origin is?
right. Like, so there's the option, I guess, of like, if the child is a minor, to go back with the parent to wherever the parent's home country is. And there are some exceptions that are made in terms of deportation. Usually not if if you actually committed a crime, but if you are as a peaceful immigrant who's here illegally and you get caught by ICE, there's some ways that you can appeal. Like, okay, like I have a minor child who has a life here, like it's like a humanitarian sort of exception. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, you're out. And like there are plenty of parents that have been deported and their children are here. And they're left with other people, or one of the parent gets of the mom gets deported and dad stays here. That sort of situation that separates the family. That is also very, very common.
Interesting. Yeah, it just feels like so many of these issues we are arguing not what actually happens, but some fictional story that we have been fed on Twitter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because it just seems like such a far-fetched thing. So let's go back to the concept of birthright citizenship and how America is different. So how many other developed nations offer birthright citizenship? Do you think the policy is like a unique strength of our immigration system? Like, how does it compare? In your article, you had a great example comparing us to Germany, for instance, and the difference on American society versus German society.
Yeah, so I've heard even President Trump saying we're the only country that has it. Well, that's not true. There are many, many countries that have this policy of birthright citizenship and many other countries that don't, right? So for the countries that don't, they have another principle where you obtain citizenship if your parents are like it's called like you obtain citizenship instead of from being born on as like American soil. You would get citizenship from blood. It's called like, so from your parents you get it. Um, a lot of Europe has these other sort of principle. It's called jus sanguinis in kind of like legal terms, but it's really if you see the problems that Europe has with immigration. I mean, there are so many reasons, and we can have a whole separate conversation about that. But I do think that part of it is that people don't assimilate because a lot of people don't have much at stake in terms of the potential to actually become citizens of those countries. So when I wrote this article that you were referencing, I spoke to one of the nation's most prominent immigration scholars, Alex Norasta from the Cato Institute, and he told me the example of Germany, which at some point, so Germany had this jus sanguinis principle, meaning you don't get citizenship unless your parents are citizens, and then what happened in that case was that people the children of people who were not citizens, who couldn't become citizens themselves, what happened was that there wasn't they weren't as assimilated, and there was more crime and less these people were less able to be productive and peaceful members of society, versus when and they were actually like more prone to radicalization, right? Versus when the German parliament took action to boost assimilation and grant citizenship to the children of some immigrants, the benefits like really kind of skyrocket. Even education, even the parents became like got better jobs. Education was much better. It's because people have something at stake here. They, their voice matters. They are part of the fabric of that society. I think it makes a lot of sense, and that example I think is very relevant for like as a case study. And the truth is that birthright citizenship does help children assimilate to American culture, and I think so. The assimilation of immigrants to America is really unique in the world. I think for many philosophical reasons, for what America represents, the founding principles, the individualism in America. But I think part of that is has to do with birthright citizenship, right? Because these children are born and they have, for it doesn't matter if their parents are Mexicans or Chinese, they have American citizenship and they have the same rights as every other American. And that means that they can work and produce just like their peers. They can serve in the military, and they can freely enjoy all the freedoms that America offers, and help preserve those. And the truth is that assimilation in America is really extraordinary, probably because of the amazing principles of this country. And I think taking away citizenship from children moving forward is really gonna hurt American assimilation. It's gonna create kind of like this underclass of
Yeah.
people who, like, what status is gonna have? Like a baby of two H-1B visas holders, meaning people who came here to work but technically don't have permanent residency, but they've been here for 20 years. And
Yeah.
the child is born. Like, is that child gonna be like an illegal immigrant? Like, is that child deportable eventually? Like, what's going to happen? What do you think that person is gonna grow up to think of America and do? You know what I mean? So
Yeah, they're adopting, if they're born in America and become American citizens, then being an American is part of that adopted identity. I mean, we all, to some extent, get to choose our identities and cultures and what we participate in, right? And it's interesting to me that the American immigration discussion in the last decade has taken on so many tones of the European right. And European immigration is so much different than American immigration, both in history, in function. And I think you raise a really interesting point in that we're told that European immigration laws are bad, but yet we're going to adopt one of the worst features of that law that creates this permanent underclass of people. And that doesn't necessarily, this is sort of my skepticism with a lot of Trump 2.0. While on the surface, there's a lot of really good libertarian things going on, but then also, like, where are we going? What's the end goal, right? Like, tariffs, okay, that strongman attitude, but you're going to ruin the economy. Like, the immigration policies, what's the goal? The goal seems to be to shut out as many people, to take naturalized citizens like yourself, denaturalize them, deport if we find a lie. I remember in the first administration, like, this Iranian doctor had been here for 30 years, had made a mistake on his paperwork, and they claimed he lied, so they deported him. I guess I don't understand what the goal is, because what you're saying about Germany is that they have a much worse system than the system that we have, where people feel appreciative of that American citizenship, that identity. They participate in it. I mean, the economics, I imagine, are really much different. You feel a part of being an American. It's probably not that you feel great about paying your taxes, but at least you're not as angry about it, right? Like, just the economic cost of this also plays into it. So I guess I don't understand the end goal of what's going on with a lot of Trump's immigration policies. Do you have, you follow this so much more closely, it's more personal. Like, what are your thoughts? Where are we headed?
yeah, so I'll say, first, I should clarify. I am not an American citizen yet. I'm working towards my citizenship, but it's really hard and expensive and all that. I
Yeah.
can't wait because I feel like an American on everything but on paper. I'm a legal permanent resident, and a lot of people feel like me. And I love this country. I love its founding principle, and I was born in the wrong side of the world, so here I am now making things right. But again, that's another discussion of the legal process for coming here legally. But yeah, it's important what you highlighted, which is not a lot of people kind of like understand that, how Trump said at the beginning, during the campaign, mass deportations, and we're gonna go for after the criminals first, and we're gonna clean everything up, and there's not gonna be any more illegal alien criminals, like they call it, like the pejorative term illegal alien, right? So the truth is that, much like in the first Trump administration, President Trump is going after legal immigrants as well. Like some of the things you mentioned, actually in his first term, there was an effort to denaturalize naturalized citizens for allegedly fraud that they might have committed during their application for citizenship or to obtain their green cards. But that's kind of like a minor case. What matters is, for instance, is that we had, for instance, Venezuelans here legally under a government program called Temporary Protected Status, which is a program that's designed to provide temporary legal protection to people who are escaping bad conditions in their home country. In the case of Venezuela, was Maduro's horrific authoritarian socialistic dictatorship. So the United States recognized the situation in Venezuela and that there were a lot of people that came here from Venezuela, escaping that, and were attracted to the United States to come here to work and were peaceful. And just like, okay, you guys, we're going to protect you from deportation. We're going to let you be here. We're going to let you work legally. And then until we find a solution about, how to move forward. Because Congress, honestly, the entire government on immigration has been terrible for a
Everything in
century.
the government ever is terrible. Okay.
Yeah. But and then now President Trump, despite having supported Venezuelan immigrants literally until the last day of his administration, his first administration, now has ended the temporary protected status of Venezuelans. People who are here working, who are peaceful, and a lot of them, they can't vote because they're not citizens, but were really supportive of President Trump in many other respects. And now they're like, okay, you guys, no more legal status for you. You have to leave by April, many of them by April 1st and some by August. So President Trump is going after legal immigration as well. And, and he's also been deporting people that have absolutely no criminal records and that are probably illegally present in the United States, but are not doing any harm to anybody. They're working and living their lives. But so that gives you something to think about, because clearly it's not about illegal immigration and the respect for the rule of law, as I've heard it said. It's about really closing America for anyone who is not an American. Like, it's kind of like the America for Americans type of mentality. It's a nativist type of perspective, right? I was born here and my parents were born here and this land belongs to me and no one else can come here because they're going to ruin it, they're going to take away my jobs or whatever other rationalization, right? So that type of mentality, I think, is completely and absolutely un-American. It is what we have right now. A lot of the population really is pushing that agenda, but this is not the first time in history it happens either. I do believe that American principles and the individualism America was founded on will eventually, triumph, but it's going to be a little rough for a while.
So what comes up a lot when I have these conversations with friends that are think differently than I do about immigration, it's like the Venezuelan example or some of the Springfield, Ohio stuff, is that there's these massive amounts of payments, and I just am not familiar with this, but they seem to have a lot of more awareness, and I wondered if you know about it. But like, folks who came here under the Biden administration, did they have a ton of money that was given to them by the government, like $3,000 a month, $6,000 a month, or whatever? And that seems to be the thing that motivates a lot of, like, even libertarians are like, well, they have to go back because they can't be getting free hotel rooms and payments, and my family's struggling. What do you know about that? Because that seems to be the argument that always comes up.
It's kind of like the welfare state argument. You can't have immigration in a welfare state.
Right.
So essentially, look, the reality is it's the whole debate around this is really distorted for many reasons, but including because there's so many myths, including being perpetuated by sitting members of Congress, that, illegal immigrants receive all these benefits. The truth is that illegal immigrants are barred from receiving most federal welfare benefits except for emergency medical care, right? So everything, all the welfare that you see immigrants getting, like the hotel rooms in New York and housing and whatnot, that comes from states and cities. It's not federal government money. And I do think that's wrong. I don't think that immigrants should be legal or illegal, should be given welfare. I think I don't think that's what they need, and that's not what's moral to do. I think what needs to happen is they need to be left alone to work and produce and sustain themselves. That's what they came here to do, the vast majority, I think. Because if you want welfare, you stay in Latin America. I was like, I come from a country, I come from Argentina, which until very recently, I could have lived off of welfare my entire life. I don't want to do that. I want to work, and like it's in Latin America, welfare programs are, you lift a rock and you find a welfare program, right? So you you know given I think they're doing more damage than good by giving immigrants welfare assistance. On the other hand, if you come here from Venezuela, you escape Maduro, you escape basically certain death, and you come here, right? You cross the border, you entered legally, in the sense you apply for asylum, and they send you to New York, and it's like all of a sudden you can't legally work because they won't give you a work permit for like 6 months or something like that. So it's either you work illegally or you receive welfare, or you don't work and you starve. So that alternative that immigrants are putting, like especially people who cross the border, it's like what do you do? Like, what is the alternative? Do you starve? And like, why did I even come here in the first place? So and some of them do work illegally sometimes, or like they sell stuff in the subway, whatever, because they can't really go to the marketplace and get a job that really honors whatever they're capable of doing. So I think the problem here is not really is the benefit going to immigrants or to natives. The problem is the welfare state.
Right.
Because really, the welfare state is an injustice. Whether it's John Smith in Los Angeles that gets the benefit that he didn't earn, or if it's an immigrant that just crossed the border. So I think the main problem is the welfare state, not immigration. Immigration is one instance of the welfare state distorting everything and messing everything up, right? And so, when government intervenes, it creates all these sort of problems and distortions. And I think that is the thing that we should focus on versus, attacking the issue of immigration. That said, I do think, again, immigrants shouldn't receive welfare like they do now.
Yeah, I mean, in your case, you're sacrificing a lot to come here.
Yeah.
I find that really interesting. I'd never heard that perspective of like, I could stay in Argentina and be on welfare there. Why make this sacrifice to come here? That's really an interesting perspective. So let's start to talk about, go back to, I guess, like, I'd love to have you back because I think there's a broader conversation on the whole of the immigration system. I'd love to hear your story and some of your thoughts on the immigration system, but time means we ought to stick to birthright citizenship. So I'm talking myself out of asking you like 100 more questions. Where are we going to go on birthright citizenship from here? I know courts have struck it down. Is this one of those things where he's trying to look tough and bold on day one, and he's trying to get people riled up, but then he'll just sort of let this wither and move on? Or is he very serious about this and wants to challenge this in court because his Supreme Court, in his mind, the Supreme Court will back him up? Where does it go from here?
Well, the executive order has been blocked 4 times already. I think the last time was a couple of days ago by judges. So it's going to, we still have to see what happens, right? I do think, and look, the disagreement on birthright citizenship about whether the Constitution, because the Constitution is not in a crystal clear. I mean, you can argue, right, that it's not like the First Amendment super clear as that, protecting all these freedoms, right? I do think there's a lot of really well-intentioned people and honest people that really do have arguments for saying, look, the 14th Amendment really does not, like, whatever the moral thing to do is, it is not unconstitutional to end birthright citizenship. There's a lot of honest debate around that. Again, I'm the one who thinks, I'm on the camp that thinks this is what the Constitution says. I do think that the Supreme Court will, if this makes it to the Supreme Court, which I think it actually might, I think the Supreme Court will rule that the 14th Amendment states that anyone except for the children of diplomats, anyone born here is a U.S. citizen. I mean, this is all just to the rest of your question. I think President Trump has this agenda on immigration and that he ran on three times really now. And anything that he can do to pursue that agenda, any low-hanging fruit, any policy he can take, he can try to enact, he will try to do that. It's kind of like, crack down on immigration at all costs, essentially, including by cracking down on legal immigrants and citizens. And I think ultimately, one of the things that we have to think about, because I see a lot of support for ending birthright citizenship from people that maybe are not as familiar with what it means. I think at the end of the day, the way I think about it is also, do you want an America with more Americans or with less Americans? Fewer Americans, I mean, right? So do you want, you know, I think an America with more Americans, more people born here, more people that are able to, unleash their capacity to produce and pursue their values in the freedom that literally only America can afford us. I think more people like that, I think we all benefit from it. And I think, by them, pursuing their happiness here in America, their individual rights to the pursuit of happiness, we are all better off, right? Because people pursuing their values and creating values benefits, we all benefit from that, right? I want a world and an America with many, many more Americans. And birthright citizenship is a way to create more Americans that are, including because they are the children of immigrants who risked everything sometimes to come here or left everything behind to pursue the American dream. They have a little bit more of this perspective of what it looks like elsewhere, right? And they don't have this perspective of, America's a dumpster fire, it sucks. And, like we see a lot of leftist education trying to tell the kids, right? They have this other vision of America because their parents were escaped horrific conditions, or not necessarily horrific, but not as good conditions that we have in the United States. So I want more Americans. I want 1 billion Americans, as Matthew Iglesias says. I don't quote him often, but that's one way in which I quote him. And so I think that we all should reflect on that. And that's an important aspect of what will America look like in 30 years, 20 years, if we end birthright citizenship now.
All right. Well, Agustina Vergara Cid, thank you so much for joining me. It has been such a great. Please tell my 6-year-old has kept trying to get in. I will be with you in just one moment, my dear. She's been trying to get in this interview the whole time. So tell us where people can follow your work.
Just follow me on Twitter or X or whatever it's called nowadays. It's Agustina
I'll put your link in there. You can say that again, but I'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, it's Agustina V Cid, at Agustina V Cid, and then the same on Instagram, or you can Google me and you'll find my website. And I'm starting a Substack very soon, so I'll be there as well.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much for joining me. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chris.